Welcome to Week 1 Demo Question. In this lab, you are required to prepare a multi-step income statement, compute the cost of goods sold, compute the current ratio, and compute the quick ratio. So the first step is to prepare the multi-step income statement. So if we click on that tab, we can see the first thing we need to input is the sales revenue. And in all labs, we will be using cell references and cell formulas. There will be no typing of numbers. So to insert the sales revenue number, we click on cell G9, enter the equal sign, click on the Demo Hardware Store Info tab, and there you will see the sales revenue. So sales revenue of $201,000. So if we click on that value and hit enter, it inputs it into the cell for us. The next thing we have to enter is the sales discount. So clicking on cell F11, hitting the equal sign, going to the Store Info tab, we can now click on Sales Returns, or Sales Discounts, I should say. Whoops, we'll undo that. Let's delete that. We want to input the sales discount. So putting an equal sign, clicking on Info tab, clicking on the $9,000 of sales discounts, and there it's inputted in this. Now we can put in the sales return number. So clicking on cell F12, hitting the equal sign, and clicking on the $4,600 of sales returns and clicking enter. So we can now calculate our net sales. First of all, we need to total up our sales discounts and sales returns. So in this cell, we can enter a formula. We're going to hit in the equal sign, and we're going to add cell F11 plus cell F12, hitting the enter sign, and there is the total of the sales discounts and sales returns. Now we can calculate the net sales revenues. So again, entering a formula, I'm going to click on the equal sign. I'm going to click on the 201,000 or cell G9, and I'm going to subtract off our sales discounts and sales returns. And there is our net sales revenues. Now we need to subtract off the cost of sales to calculate our gross margin. So in the cost of sales cell, I'm going to click on it. I'm going to put the equal sign, and again go back to our info tab, and we should have the cost of sales here. So click on the cost of sales, which is F7, hit enter, and it input it for us. So now we need to calculate the gross margin. So clicking on cell H15, clicking on the equal sign, I can click on the 187,400 or cell H13, subtract the cost of sales, and $96,100 is our gross margin. So that is our gross margin. We still have to figure out our operating income and net income. So what we still need to subtract off is some expenses. So some expenses listed on our info tab. The first one is a selling expense. So I can type in the account title, or I can use a cell reference. So clicking on cell B17, I put the equal sign, go back to the info tab, and again, one of the expenses was our selling expenses. So I'm just going to click on cell B16, hit enter, and it has input that account title for me. I now need to put the amount, so clicking on cell G17, hitting the equal sign, going back to our info tab, and clicking on the $37,800 of selling expenses and clicking enter, it inputs that number for us. Now the other expense we have is our general expense. So again, I don't want to type that in. I'm going to go back to the info tab, click on general expenses, and click enter. So now I need to put the amount, so go to cell G18, click on that cell, hit the equal sign, go back to the info tab, click on the amount, which is on cell F8, and hit enter, and it inputs it for us. So now we need to add up those two numbers to calculate our operating expenses. So click on cell H18, hit the equal sign, and I'm going to click on cell G17. I'm going to add it to cell G18 and hit enter. And there's our operating expenses. So we can now calculate our operating income. So again, clicking on cell H19, hitting the equal sign, I'm going to take my gross margin, which is in cell H15, and I will subtract off our operating expenses found in cell H18 and hit enter, and there's our operating income. Now there was still some revenue we didn't account for, and that was our interest revenue. So I'm going to input that account title in. So if I click on cell B21, hit the equal sign, go back to the info tab, and there's our interest revenue. So I'm clicking on cell B9, hitting enter, and it puts in that account title for me. I now need to put the amount. So if I click on cell H21, hit the equal sign, go back to the info tab, click on the interest revenue amount of $1,500 and hit enter, and it has inputted it for us. So I now need to add that interest revenue to our operating income. So I need to put in a formula in cell H22. So clicking on cell H22, hitting the equal sign, I'm going to click on cell H19 plus cell H21 and hit enter. And there is our net income. So that's our multi-step income statement. The next thing we're required to do is calculate the cost of goods sold. So clicking on that tab, in order to calculate the cost of goods sold, you need to take your beginning inventory, subtract off net purchases, and subtract off any other costs associated with those costs of goods sold. In our case, we have some freight. And then we need to subtract off our ending inventory, and that will give us our cost of goods sold. So let's start with that, our beginning inventory. So if we click on the equal sign, go back to our info tab, and our beginning inventory was on December 31st, 2006. So if I click on that amount of $21,000 and click enter, that'll give me $21,000. So now I need to subtract or add my net purchases. So we need to go down here to calculate our net purchases. So here we have net purchases. It says purchases. So let's click on the amount, hit equals, go back to our info tab, and click on the value of $90,600, which is our purchases, and click enter. Now we need to subtract off our purchase discounts. So if we click on the equal sign, go back to our purchase discounts account title and click enter, and it's inputted in for us. And we've already put in the amount of -$3,000, but we really should have a cell reference. So I'm going to put in the equal sign, and the discount is a negative number, so I'm going to put a negative number. Let's go back to our info tab, click on the value 3,000, which is found in cell F30, and click enter. Now we also have purchase returns. So the account titles are already listed in there. Let's click on the equal sign, and again, the returns will be a negative number, so putting in a subtraction sign, going back to the info tab, and clicking on the 2,000. And to calculate our net purchases, we need to put in a formula. So I can either put in the equal sign and add cells F18 through F20, or I can also use the auto sum function. So clicking on cell F21, I'm going to click on the auto sum button, and as you can see, it adds up that column for me and calculates my $85,600, which is our net purchases. So I can now put that amount in cell H11, so hitting equals sign in cell H11 and clicking on cell F21 and hitting enter. So the other thing we have to take into consideration is our freight. So let's put in that account title here. So clicking on cell B12, hitting the equal sign, going back to the store info tab, and there's our freight in. Now we need to put in the amount, so clicking on cell H12, hitting the equal sign, going back to the info tab, and hitting the freight in amount of 4,100 and hit enter, and it inputs it for us. So now we need to put in a formula here. So we need to add up these numbers, so cell H10 through cell H12. So again, I'm going to hit the auto sum button, and it automatically sums up those three numbers. And as you can see, my column's not wide enough, so I'm going to double click on the edge of column H12, and it automatically will format it to the correct width. So we've calculated our costs of goods available for sale, but we have not taken off the ending inventory. So we'll call that ending inventory. We can type that in. And we need to put the amount in. So clicking on cell H14, hitting the equal sign, going back to the info tab, and our ending inventory amount, which was on December 31st, 2007, is $19,400. So clicking on cell F33, hitting the equal sign, and it's put it in for us. So we need to take that amount off of the cost of goods available for sale. So clicking on cell H15, putting in the equal sign, I'm going to click on cell H13, I'm going to subtract off our ending inventory and hit enter. And there's our costs of sales. The last step was to do a ratio analysis. So clicking on the ratio analysis tab, we can see we need to calculate the current ratio and the quick ratio. So current ratio is current assets divided by current liabilities. So I'm going to click on cell F7 and hit the equal sign, go back to the store info tab, and click on the current assets of $325,000, hit enter, and it inputs it for me. So current liabilities, again, click on cell F8, hit the equal sign, go back to the info tab, and click on the current liabilities of $100,000 and hit enter. So we want to calculate that and put in the answer right here. So clicking on cell D5, hit the equal sign, and I want to divide 325,000, or cell F7, so divide it. So by current liabilities, which is 100,000, in cell F8, and hit enter. And we have a current ratio of 3.25. The last thing we need to do is calculate our quick ratio, which is quick assets divided by current liabilities. So clicking on cell F14, hitting the equal sign, going back to the info tab, and I'm going to click on the $125,000 in quick assets and hit enter. And clicking on cell F15, hitting the equal sign, going back to the info tab, clicking on the current liabilities value of 100,000, hitting enter, and it's entered in our current liabilities. So we need to put the answer in here. So the quick ratio, so click on cell D12, hit the equal sign, click on cell F14, divided by current liabilities of 100,000, which is cell F15, and there's our quick ratio of 1.25. And that is week 1 demo. If you have any questions, please talk to me in class or send me an email. Thank you very much.